Good morning, everyone. Just a slight correction. We're here to talk about ocean regeneration next. So, just to begin, I'll introduce myself. My name is Daniela Kohler. I am a storyteller, a social impact storyteller, and a few years ago, I went on a personal journey towards purpose. I embarked on this journey on my own, and in that I ended up making a documentary film about my path to purpose. In that journey, which is still ongoing, I came across the word regeneration, and this changed my whole life and my whole story. So we're fast forwarding 7 years later to when I first planted this seed of purpose and regeneration. And I now live in a community in Portugal modeling regeneration. Just to start off, the word regeneration is not just a word. It's an action. It's about replenishing, re-nourishing, regrowing, and restoring balance into something that is essentially depleted, destroyed, and threatened. So it's not just a word. And what we're talking about here is ocean regeneration. And the ocean is a massive, massive thing. So it's not just a word. It's an action. It's a complete change in mindset. And it's a commitment. So I'm here today to talk about ocean regeneration with 3 wonderful ladies who have embarked on their own journey towards the purpose of regeneration, who have made their own commitment, who have faced an ambitious challenge in restoring the balance of our threatened oceans. I would like to call onto the stage our beloved panel, Monica Verbeek, Laura, and Raquel Gaspar. Thank you all, ladies, for being here. So, as I said earlier, we're talking about ocean regeneration. And it's an ambitious feat, I guess, as you will all share your stories with this. Let's start off with Monica. Monica from Seas at Risk. I would like to ask you, you work a lot with establishing a standard, especially with the Blue Manifesto, about creating healthy oceans. Now, healthy oceans, what does that mean in the most generic term? What constitutes as a healthy ocean, and what policies and action can be implemented to achieve the model healthy ocean?
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. A healthy ocean is an ocean full of thriving and diverse life, full of ecosystems that are helping the ocean to be resilient against the climate crisis. And there are several aspects that need to be looked at for a healthy ocean that we came up with in our Blue Manifesto, a manifesto basically for European governments and institutions for the policy steps they need to take in order to get in 2030 a healthy ocean. It was endorsed by over 100 European NGOs and constitutes basically of making sure that at least 30% of the ocean is protected by 2030, as was already mentioned, that we make a shift, a complete shift, a transition of the current destructive fisheries going on to low-impact fisheries, and of course that we stop the impouring of all the hazardous substances, nutrients, plastics, microplastics into the ocean. That sounds very high pie in the sky, but it certainly isn't, because there are very concrete steps that can be taken. And I have to explain, in the last panel, it was more about what NGOs can do and how you can work with governments, and also what people can do and working with fishers. We at Seas at Risk, we represent many environmental organizations from all over Europe, and our focus is on on policy, on governments making sure that they take the right decisions, put in the right legislation that locks in the right actions. Because enforcement is great, and we need it, and it's great that Sea Shepherd does it, but we need the laws that need to be enforced. And a lot of those laws are not around right now. Or if they are around, indeed, they're not implemented. So, for example, we currently have in Europe about 15% of the area is protected in marine protected areas. Of those marine protected areas, less than 1% really is off limits for human activities. In the rest, human activities can still take place. And for example, in 86% of the marine protected areas that are installed really to protect bottom habitats, in 86% of those areas, bottom trawling is allowed. Now, bottom trawling is a way of fishing where you go with a big net and you sort of bulldozer with a huge net and you catch everything that you find in your way in order to catch the fish. It's a little bit like bulldozering a forest to catch some rabbits. That is the most proliferate way of fishing in Europe at the moment. Clearly, we need legislation to make sure that this kind of destructive, extractivist fisheries is transferred into a way of fishing that is much more considerate of the environment. That's one. Other things like reducing the input of pollutions, it has to do with our agriculture policy. Because right now there's still a lot of nutrients flowing into the sea causing eutrophication. But it also has to do with trying to get a more circular economy, phase out single-use plastics in order for them not to get to the sea, right? And in terms of, so protection, we need to really make sure we do protect, and there need to be in much more areas protected. Pollution, we need to make sure that the influx in the ocean stops, and for that we need to also totally reduce plastics production and indeed reuse plastics, as we heard before. I've lost now the third one, the fisheries. Yeah, of course we need to transition to low-impact fisheries.
And you mentioned that you have to, in order to implement these strategies, you would have to work with legislation and I guess then also local governments and local communities. Can you give us some concrete examples of what you implement in the Blue Manifesto that enable and empower local communities and local governments to really genuinely act towards these strategies?
Yeah, for example, we fought very hard to get legislation on plastics, and now in Europe we have a single-use plastics directive, and in all the countries in Europe they are now being transformed and implemented, and not in each country as good. What we've been doing is collecting examples in municipalities, local authorities, whatever, of how they provide solutions to the use of single-use plastics, how they put fountains, or they have a lot of ideas and solutions, and we've been gathering them in a big document, but also on our website you can find a map and you can click on where you live and see what the solutions are. And we bring this to local authorities for them to get inspired by others and see what they've done and implement it in their communities.
Thank you, Monica. And I'd like to pass that on also to Raquel Gaspar, who is the co-founder of Ocean Alive. You guys work directly with local communities in implementing as well strategies and campaigns for ocean regeneration. And I would like to ask you, or just continue the question, how can local communities, and in fact even local businesses, integrate themselves into a regenerative model? Or can you even give us an example of a campaign that you have run?
Good morning, everyone. I'm hearing. I think it all comes to shift the way we live today, from predators to keepers of the sea. Actually, keepers of the sea is the translation of the example of what Ocean Life is doing very close to here, 50 kilometers south of Lisbon in the southwest estuary, engaging the fishing community, especially fishing women, in new professions that care for the ocean. But going one step back, I think I truly believe that now we live at the end of the beginning. I think we did everything wrong or good until now, and we learned so much that now we need to regenerate. I think I strongly believe in this word, and I see the ocean as a place to regenerate. And there's a scientific evidence that if we invest in regenerating the key habitats, like the marine forests, we can have, again, a full ocean. Of course, that's just looking in one way, because there's so many other things happening, like the overfishing, pollution, everything else. So it's just one way to see. In my life, I think you really need to believe in something. If you don't go through that direction, you just get lost. And it's very important to focus in one direction, and direction now is really rebuilding the marine habitats. So what we're trying to do is that we work with seagrass meadows, and what we're trying to do is to eliminate the problems of that damage and degrade the seagrass meadows. And by doing that, we create new professions for the people that depend on these seagrass meadows, valuing their wisdoms. For instance, instead of catching more cuttlefish, you can earn that amount of money by being a marine guide, or by providing scientific data about the location of the seagrass meadows, or even working in changing behaviors. So this is the model we're trying to implement to create money, business, from caring the ocean, in complement at that stage now of exploiting the ocean. And I hope that in future just could be a full-time job. But there's something very important. We need also to shift the economy, and also to shift the laws. And I'd like to bring the example of the Costa Rica law of forest. Imagine that someone says that you cannot change the bottom of the sea. Actually, that's what Costa Rica law says about the forest. You cannot change the forest. If you have forest, you have to keep it. More, if you have forest, you earn. The government pays you ecosystem services by purifying the water, keeping the soil, everything you know about what is the forest. So imagine bringing this to the ocean. So paying for the ecosystem services of having communities. So paying the communities ecosystem services by them carrying the vital habitats of like coastal marine forests. But there's also the need to change economy, and I'd like to recall the example of a work of Ralph Chamy that works for the International Monetary Fund. They are trying to provide value for a living whale instead of the meat of the. So a whale has a value in the market when it's meat for certain countries, right? So they're trying to provide a value that represents the ecosystem service that the whale provides to everyone, and try to give that a value in the, I don't know the English name, it's bolsa, mercado de bolsa, can someone help me? Stock market. And that money would come to government, and government then would support the communities and then entrepreneurs to keep the whales alive. So it's all about changing the way we've been doing things. And I think it's wonderful, you know, that we are all here with this power in our hands. And yes, I think it's really good to be here today.
It's great to have you here. And I just want to go a little bit further into this idea of You mentioned about working with seagrass meadows, right? And we also acknowledge the fact that replenishing balance into an ecosystem means as well the local ecosystem. And in places like Portugal, for example, a big part of the, let's say, the input in the local ecosystem is tourism. And there are beaches here which thrive off tourism. Is there a way to find a compromise or a balance of finding ocean regeneration based on the standards that you have implemented and still work with the economy of tourism?
Well, there is, but we have to work for it. Yes, I don't think that sustainable and conscious tourism we are in Portugal at that stage, so we need to learn a lot. Again, Costa Rica is a leading country on that subject. So yes, the answer is, but we need to work a lot for reaching that.
Thank you. And how do you feel about that? Laura, you are from, just bear with me, Laura Aguilera, Ocean Renewable Energy Engineer at Atlantic Plus.
Yes.
How can you respond to that? Because you often also, in your field, you work with technology, large-scale industries, and also innovation. How does a statement like keeping spaces natural and completely free of human activity, how can we implement or work together with large-scale industry and technology to find that balance between those two solutions?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me here. Well, I will bring to this panel the more technical aspects and not very specialized in ocean regeneration. But I truly believe that we can find positive synergies with the industry and ocean regeneration. We can use technology and innovation to get to successful regenerative ocean solutions. And how can we do that? For me, first, to address the positive synergies between industry and ocean regeneration, we must look at the offshore renewable sector. To fulfill the Europe goal of becoming climate neutral by 2050, we need to increase the offshore farms that have been deployed in the last few decades, but we still need an exponential growth. For 2050, it is expected an increase from 12 gigabytes of capacity installed of wind energy to 300 gigabytes, which is a huge number. And we need to take benefits of those developments that are going to happen in the next few decades. And offshore renewable energies has huge opportunities for ocean regeneration, in my opinion, because the areas where will be implemented those developments will be areas close to fishing, close to other activities like navigation, and that will create opportunities for natural restoration to happen, and even we will create fish sanctuaries. And we can go a step farther in sustainability and go for an extra dimension of sustainability, and we can use the area that we will be occupying with offshore wind farms, for example, or offshore renewable energy, to implement restoration projects. And by doing that, we can be using the same resources for multiple purposes. For example, we can use the same boats for maintenance and inspection of the offshore platforms, but also to monitor the evolution of those restoration projects. We can use the offshore platform to install the necessary sensors for monitoring biodiversity, water quality, etc. And we can use data for both purposes to improve our knowledge of offshore renewable energy and also about how we can improve the restoration techniques in the ocean. And that's one thing. Obviously, if we are going to be multiplying by 15 the space used for maritime and for offshore wind, if we want to get to that number of 300 gigabytes, And we need to find places that are outside of marine protective areas, of course, or sensitive other areas. And we need to think as a holistic way or approach to use the space, as I said, to use the space not only for energy regeneration, but also regeneration. And this is what I see how industry can work with ocean regeneration, but how we integrate innovation or technology into these projects. I think the answer is that we need to bring technology and innovation to ocean regenerative solutions. We need knowledge. Action starts with knowledge, and I think for taking off these regenerative projects out of the paper, we need data. We need data from sensors, for example, from autonomous vehicles, from satellite imagery, and for that we need innovation and technology. And we would need to research for the best ways to develop those regeneration projects, to find the best materials, to find the best structures, to find the best deployment techniques to have successful projects. And for doing that, we need institutions like CoLAB Plus Atlantic, where I work, that besides the technical knowledge that is going to be necessary, that have the capacity to speak and talk with different relevant agents for these projects. For example, industry, innovative institutions, governments, environmental agents, all together. And we also need institutions that knows how to integrate those generated knowledge, this generated knowledge, into useful information for policymakers, for them to take the best decisions to grow our blue economy, but without compromising our environment. And to finish your question, and as an example of how can we do that, I would give a project that we are working on at Plus Atlantic, an ocean regeneration project, together with other 7 institutions from Portugal and Norway. It is called Blue Forest. You can find on the website by the name of blueforest.pt. And we are just trying to bring novel technologies for massive ocean restoration. We are going to implement those technologies in 3 different places of the Portuguese coast. We are going to study how Portuguese marine forest can be used as carbon storage. And another important aspect that it is crucial to analyze, in my opinion, and we are dealing with that in our project, is to study the economic value from the economical point of view, environmental point of view, and societal point of view of Portuguese marine ecosystems. And that's an interesting project, and you can find more information if you want also in your website. And I think that would be a good example of how innovation technology can get into ocean regeneration. And for doing that in a bigger scale, we will need industry. So I would say, to finish, that we have to look for a more integrated and sustainable blue economy, where we see blue economy activities together with ocean regeneration, not as isolated parts.
Thank you so much. So I'd just like to shift that back over to Raquel, then go over to you, Monica, about something in between that. But for you, Raquel, just on a personal level, how do you feel when you hear that? What's your response to that based on the work that you do?
You mean what?
Yes, about an innovative solution of using industry to create ocean regeneration.
I think it's a very useful tool, knowledge that I don't have myself, but we are intelligent human beings, and technology can help us a lot. I actually don't work a lot with technology, but I think we need to grab everything we have in our hands, the best knowledge to make the best decisions, and in time.
Great. So knowledge is power in this sense. And
Yes.
And Monica, what kind of blue lights sort of flash out from the Blue Manifesto when you hear a proposal like that from a project? Are there things in the manifesto which then provide a structure of authentic, genuine ocean regeneration in terms of working with industry?
Yes, of course we need to work with industry. The Blue Manifesto is really focused on policies that we need to have in place, also to make sure that technology takes its right path. I'm actually very interested because as it stands now, there is a strategy that foresees indeed a huge increase in offshore wind renewables, which of course we need to make the energy shift. But the problem is a little bit space. Not so much for the coastline of Portugal, there's still some space, there's an Atlantic out there, but if you think, for example, about the North Sea, it's really a very, very, very busy sea. And right now, what is Belgium, for example, doing? They say, okay, we want a wind farm, let's shove it into our marine protected area, because where else can it be, and it will not have so much impact and perhaps even help regenerate. The issue is, of course, that we don't know yet a lot about the environmental impact of offshore wind parks. And therefore, I think it's quite dangerous at this moment, with this lack of knowledge, to already assume that we don't, or that we can put it into marine protected areas. And I would say no, science has shown we really need specific areas in the sea, biodiversity hotspots, where we do not have any human activities, simply keep it there like a reserve, but basically also to assess what our human activities are doing wherever we are imposing it. And talking about lack of space, I think this clearly calls for, if we want more renewables and we have a lack of space, obviously we certainly have to start first reducing all our human activities that are destructive, like offshore oil and gas, like bottom trawling, like deep sea mining. You know, let's not go there. Let's not. Let's realize which human activities are most destructive and reduce and phase out as soon as possible to free up some space for renewables, for example, and other more regenerative human activities. But always keep in mind we need to set apart certain parts of the sea to be sure that if unexpectedly offshore wind farms that seem to be the perfect idea to combine with, for example, aquaculture or shells or something, turns out that unexpected impacts were there, that you then have not destroyed the 30% of the sea that we should have set apart to make sure that there is regeneration at least in those parts of the sea. So yeah, absolutely for using technology and trying to make it a win-win, but always keep in mind that when we do not know enough, we should tread careful and make sure we always have a backup in terms of really protected areas.
And you said the magic word win-win, right? So this is all about like taking opportunity on all sides and essentially finding the balance there. I mean, how challenging is that? That's a very ambitious path to go on, especially when we're talking about knowledge and it's such a tangible concept. You know, it's not like a very concrete, how long will it take, essentially? How far do we have to go down the road of accumulating knowledge in not only implementing these standards, but maintaining the standards to keep a healthy ocean?
Well, we know enough what we need to do tomorrow, today, yesterday, in order to get a healthy ocean. I mean, honestly, yes. No more knowledge is needed for that. We know exactly what we are doing to the ocean. We know exactly how we are destroying it. The point is that the vested interests currently having a hold on our politicians, having a hold on the economy, that is what driving this destruction. So we really need a fundamental shift in our political economy, basically, in order to make sure that technologies like these can make their way, that we do no longer have perverse subsidies subsidizing destructive fisheries, subsidizing technology to go deep sea mining, but rather use it to assess impacts of technologies where we have some hope that it would actually not only help us with the energy shift, but also perhaps help us with regenerating the ocean. So honestly, I think it's a no-brainer. We all know what we need to do. The whole problem is the interests that are there currently keep us stuck in this destructive place where we are now. And that is what we all need to address, basically. And I think in order to address that, we need all of you to, of course, make sure the knowledge is out there, people are aware that there will be some pressure on governments, but also that it will become very clear how the financial setup is, who actually earns a lot of money with keeping the things how they are. Why is currently a lot of the COVID money that came free to renew our economies after the lockdown, why is it going to oil and gas industry, for example? Something not quite right there. Why is it? Because those were the people who knew how to talk to the politicians, who knew how to get their hands on the money. Whereas small startups with really sustainable ideas would never ever get that money. I'm slightly frustrated about all of this, and that's why I really think we all need to work about getting a system change.
Thank you. You hit a really personal point for me as well, because along my journey, it's really about feeling that there's a lot of people out there who want to do the right thing, and a lot of people working together, but very often we face literally the wave of financial capacity and also the support of local governments and global governments. I want to bring it a little bit towards CSR and working with companies in implementing those strategies. First of all, Raquel, how has it been for you and your organization? Have you found that, where are we in that, in this environment? Have you found it that the support is there, or is it a challenge, or just to share a little bit about your own path here?
Okay, I love challenges. I think we need challenges to grow up. And you need to prove you're right, or you need to prove you can do it. And once you are on that way, I love the COVID challenge, by the way. Our NGO had a business model made of earning money in marine education groups and selling beach cleaning campaigns to companies in team buildings. And suddenly in 2020, we almost earned €0. And it was the best jump of trampoline, do you say this, I had in my life, because I learned that the deeper you go, the higher you have the chance to fight and to see. And so today we are working on reforestation mainly. And that's when the money is coming, because now most of the enterprises want to help reforestation projects to neutralize their carbon, or because they want to care about the ocean. So I think there's so many opportunities for projects like ours to grow. And sometimes see on the Portuguese scenario, I sometimes I don't understand why there are not so many initiatives. Of course, when you do a project, you need a hand. One of the things you need not to do is to abandon the boat. You have to keep there in the storms. So I'm really hoping that the call from Greta and all these young people that are now on the streets fighting and can just feel their appeal and try to do something. Yes, but I think I don't complain about fundings. I prefer to go after them.
And Laura, just to take it from your side, I mean, is it really just about these large-scale industries and innovation implementing the strategies, or can we also say they can support projects like Raquel and NGOs like Monica? I mean, is there a sense of responsibility there or acknowledgement, or just to divert the attention to where that is at?
No, I think some industries care about what is happening to the ocean and are willing to put their own capacities to support ocean regeneration. But I think sometimes we need to bring them those initiatives and to open their minds. I think that's a job that we can all do, even if we work in the industry or not, to propitiate the positive synergies that I was talking about before. Because for me, sometimes actors are working separately, and we are not getting to the win-win solution that Monica mentioned before, or the most win-win solution. So we need to bring together this problem of ocean regeneration and talk with the industry and trying to bring innovation and technology. I think we need to be proactive doing that. And I think that would be beneficial for associations like Raquel, Oceans Allies, or other institutions, but also for industry, because we can open to new professionals, to new jobs, a new economy, and that is sustainability too. That is a way to go, to do the transition from those more polluted industries like oil and gas extraction or the worst ways of fishing, to other areas where we can find economic value. I think that's the way we need to go.
Thank you. So just to wrap up, we're coming to the end of our panel, so thank you all, ladies. We've established here that it's a big feat, it's going to be a challenge. It is a challenge, and we're all here to face it. Ladies, if you can imagine, there's that young 20-something-year-old standing in front of you and saying, I want to face this challenge and I want to join the team. How would you, just in a short sentence, inspire them and also be honest with them at the feat and the challenge that they face, but also the possibility and the impact that they can create with the purpose that they have found within themselves to take part in the journey of ocean regeneration?
Whoa.
Well, we're here talking big, so.
What you can do to help this journey for ocean generation is, first of all, try to improve your own behavior, like eating less or no fish, etc., as was discussed in the previous panel. Make sure you don't use single-use plastics, those kinds of things. It's your own behavior. Other than that, you can certainly also go out and talk about the importance of the ocean for our survival, a human survival, and the importance of the ocean for helping us with the climate crisis, the absorption of CO2, etc. And if you want to do even more, I would certainly encourage you to come and help us trying to influence your government, your politicians, and explain to them their role and their responsibility in being part of saving the ocean and therefore saving the planet and therefore saving humanity.
Raquel,
Okay.
from your side of the story.
My side of the story goes down to the inner person. I'd say to this girl, who you are, what is your power, and use your power. And you need to do what you love. And from then on, you're free to fly, I think. I'm sorry.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. And Laura?
That would be a big responsibility. But I would say to her or him to trust nature. Oceans have also a great capacity to recover themselves, so we need to listen to those ecosystems and we need to help them. And I would say that to help them, they would, or he or she, would need to press governments to have the right knowledge and not, how can I say, not to give up on this challenge. But I would say to hear the nature, but because we have the answers there, but we have to look at them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So there we have it. Ladies, thank you so much for your time, for your contribution, and for all your hard work. Yeah, how can we say it? We're here to face the challenge, and we're here to face it together. So on a final note, I guess we all agree, challenge accepted. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful, inspiring day.